The text came at 3 a.m., right as I was halfway through my 8th cup of coffee and knee-deep in a desperate attempt to memorize the symptoms of obscure autoimmune disorders. The medical school library was pitch black except for the glow of my phone screen, which sliced through the darkness and lit up my textbooks with an eerie glow. Moving to Lay. Madison got her big break. The house is in foreclosure. Sorry we couldn't wait. Your sister needs us right now. I read my mother's message once, then again, and again, until the words blurred together. My hands trembled as I set my coffee down, suddenly unsure if I was more wired from caffeine or shock. They moved without telling me. Our home, the house I grew up in, was gone. I'm Olivia Chen. I'm 24 years old. And in that moment, I learned how easy it was for my family to leave me behind. Hey, you okay? Sarah, my study partner, whispered across the table. You look like you've seen a ghost. I turned my phone toward her. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, Liv. They can't just do that. Can they? They could. They had. Madison had always been the favorite. My younger sister, the golden child, chasing fame with a kind of blinding confidence my parents mistook for brilliance. Every failed audition, every blurry headshot, every overpriced acting class. They cheered her on like she was the next Meryl Streep. Meanwhile, I buried myself in textbooks and scraped by on partial scholarships, dreaming of white coats and hospital halls. When I got into med school, my mother's reaction had been tepid at best. That's nice, dear. Did you hear? Madison got a call back for a deodorant commercial. I learned to live with being second place. But this was abandonment. I have to go home, I said, already stuffing my notes into my bag. I need to see. Liv, wait. Sarah reached for my arm. Your exam's in 6 hours. If you leave now? She was right. The test was worth nearly half my grade. If I failed, I could lose my scholarship. Tomorrow, I said quietly, right after the exam. The next 8 hours were a blur. I finished the test, though I couldn't tell you what I wrote. The 4-hour drive home dragged, my mind spinning with questions. How long had they been planning this? Why hadn't they told me? What would I find? The answer, nothing. The 2-story colonial I'd grown up in stood dark and lifeless. A faded foreclosure notice clung to the front door. The garden, once my father's pride, was choked with weeds. Through the windows, I could see blank walls where family photos used to hang. They hadn't just moved. They had erased me. I tried the key. It didn't fit. They'd changed the locks. I sat on the front steps, the same ones where my dad used to take first day of school photos, and called my mother, straight to voicemail. My father, same. Finally, I dialed Madison. To my surprise, she answered. Oh hey, she said, her voice distracted. Mom said you might call. Madison, what's going on? Where is everyone? Why didn't anyone tell me? She sighed like I was being difficult. We moved. I got a part in a Netflix series. It's not huge, but my agent says it could be my big break. Mom and Dad came out to help me settle in. The house, well, you knew they were behind on the mortgage. I didn't. No one had told me. So where am I supposed to go? I asked, my voice barely audible. All my stuff. Oh right, they boxed some of it up. It's in a storage unit. I'll text you the address. First month's paid. After that, you're on your own. I heard voices in the background. Look, I've gotta go. We're about to shoot. Don't call for a while, okay? I really need to focus. Then she hung up. The storage unit was across town, small, musty, and depressing. Inside, I found a few half-packed boxes. My medical textbooks were shoved in with high school yearbooks. My grandmother's pearls, the only thing she left me, were wrapped in an old t-shirt and stuffed in a shoebox. Everything else was gone. Sold off. Thrown away. I sat on the concrete floor, surrounded by what little they'd spared, and felt something inside me crack. Then shift. Then harden. My phone buzzed. Liv. Sarah's voice filtered through. What happened? Where are you? They're gone, I said. My voice was calm, now cold. They left me some boxes. No note. Just that text. Oh my God. Stay put. I'm coming to get you. You can stay with me. No, I cut her off. I need to deal with this. I've got rounds tomorrow. Liv. I'm okay, and weirdly I was. They made their choice. Now I'll make mine. That night, I spent the last of my emergency fund on a cheap motel and a small U-Haul. The next day, I drove back to school. Sarah helped me find a rundown studio I could barely afford. The heating sucked. The walls were thin, but it was mine. The months that followed were brutal. I took extra shifts at the hospital, lived on ramen and caffeine, took out more loans. I was exhausted, constantly on the verge of collapse. But I pushed through, not just for men's school. For me. For every time Madison told me to stop being dramatic. For every time my parents pretended I didn't exist. And it worked. My grades soared. Professors started noticing. When a competitive research position opened up, focused on childhood leukemia, my advisor recommended me without hesitation. "You've got something rare, Olivia," Dr. Harrison said. "Don't lose it." I didn't. The research led to a publication. The publication opened new doors. I began to build a reputation, quietly, fiercely, steadily, as a rising star in pediatric oncology. Meanwhile, Madison's big break fizzled out. The show was canceled. Word got around, my parents had drained their savings to fund her Hollywood lifestyle. They never called. Neither did I. As my final year of med school approached, I applied to top residency programs across the country, but focused on one, Cedars-Sinai, Los Angeles. Not because of them, but because it was the best place to pursue my field. If I happened to cross paths with my family, well, that would be their problem. The day match results came out, Sarah was practically vibrating with excitement. "Open it. Come on, Liv." My hands shook as I clicked the email. "Congratulations. You have matched to your first choice program. Cedars-Sinai, Los Angeles." Sarah screamed, throwing her arms around me. "You did it. You're going to be an amazing doctor." I smiled, the words settling over me like armor. On my own. 4 years had passed since that text. 4 years of silence, of survival, of transformation. They had abandoned me, but I didn't vanish. I rose. Now I was heading to their city, not as the daughter they left behind, but as Dr. Olivia Chin, future pediatric oncologist at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country. Let them try to ignore that. Los Angeles was just as I remembered it from that one childhood vacation. Expansive, chaotic, and endlessly sunlit. My new apartment near the hospital wasn't much. Definitely not the luxury high-rise Madison used to daydream about. But it was clean, safe, and completely mine. That made it enough. Residency consumed me. 80-hour weeks blurred into each other, every shift a test of stamina and purpose. Each rotation presented new challenges, new patients, new chances to prove I belonged. The exhaustion ran deep, but every child's laugh after a positive scan, every tearful thank you from a relieved parent reminded me I was exactly where I was meant to be. 3 months into the program, I saw them. It was a Tuesday evening. I'd stepped out to grab a coffee from the shop around the corner, still replaying treatment options for a 7-year-old patient fighting a rare and aggressive leukemia. I was barely present when the barista called out, "Next in line," and I stepped forward, only to freeze. There they were, my mother and Madison, standing at the counter. They hadn't seen me yet. Mom looked older, more fragile. Madison wore expensive clothes and perfectly applied makeup, but there was a dullness behind her eyes, a worn-out gleam that fame couldn't quite polish. I could have turned around, slipped out quietly, but I didn't. 4 years of silence, hurt, and abandonment had crystallized into something solid. I stood my ground. Grande caramel macchiato, and my mother's voice faltered as she turned and caught sight of me. Her face went pale. "Olivia?" Madison spun around, nearly hitting a customer with her oversized purse. "What are you doing here?" "I work here," I said calmly, tapping my hospital ID badge. "Resident at Cedars-Sinai." My mother blinked, stunned. "Cedars-Sinai? That's one of the best hospitals in the country." I nodded. "It is." The barista called out their drinks. Madison snatched hers and turned to leave. "We're going to be late for my meeting," she muttered, tugging at Mom's sleeve. But my mother didn't move. She just stared at me like she was seeing someone unfamiliar, or maybe finally seeing me at all. "How long have you been in lay?" she asked quietly. 3 months. "And you didn't tell us?" A bitter laugh escaped before I could stop it. "Like you told me when you left? When I came home to a locked door and a foreclosure notice?" "That was different," Madison interjected. "I had opportunities. I needed to focus on your career." "Yeah, I remember. I took my coffee from the counter. How's that going, by the way? Her cheeks flushed. I've done plenty of work. I just finished it. A commercial for a furniture store, I said, not unkindly, but not gently either. I saw it. Nice jingle. Mom stepped forward, one hand hesitating in the air like she wanted to reach for me. Olivia, honey, can we talk? Your father would want. My father? I stepped back, my voice cool. You mean the man who changed the locks without a word? Who boxed up my life and left it in storage like it didn't matter? We did what we had to do, she said, her voice breaking. Madison needed. Enough. I didn't raise my voice, but it stopped her cold. I needed things too. I needed support. I needed family. While you were chasing her dreams, I was building my future alone. We cared, she said softly. No, I said. You cared about her. And that's okay, because I made it without you. I turned to leave, but Madison's voice stopped me. So that's it? You're going to punish us forever? I looked at her, really looked. My baby sister. The golden child. The reason I've been left behind. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself. That's the difference. I adjusted my coat and started walking away. Enjoy your commercial. I didn't turn back, even when I heard my mother call my name. My pager buzzed, code blue in the pediatric unit. Real life was calling. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of charts, codes, and consultations. It wasn't until I was finally on my way home that the encounter truly sank in. They seemed smaller somehow. Mom, worn down by years of chasing dreams that never panned out. Madison, still clinging to a spotlight that had long since dimmed. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Please, can we meet? Your father wants to see you too. We've missed you. Missed me? Or missed having someone to sacrifice? Before I could delete it, another message came through, this one from Dr. Harrison, my former advisor. Congratulations. Your research on pediatric leukemia treatments has been accepted for presentation at the National Medical Conference next month. You're making waves, Olivia. I smiled. That girl from the library, holding back tears over a coffee cup, would never have imagined this. And yet, here I was. I replied to my mother's message. I'm presenting at the National Medical Conference next month. If you want to see me, be there. I'm not interested in private apologies or excuses. Then I powered off my phone. The next morning, I arrived early for rounds. The pediatric floor was still and quiet. Most of the kids were asleep. I checked charts, reviewed meds, and spent extra time with Emma, my 7-year-old leukemia patient. Her numbers were improving. A fragile, hard-won victory. As I updated her file, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Mom. We'll be there. All of us. Your father wants to make things right. I didn't respond. Some things can't be fixed. Some choices draw lines that never fully fade. But as Emma stirred and smiled up at me, trust and hope in her eyes, I realized something. What my family did hadn't broken me. It had shaped me. They may have turned away, but in doing so, they gave me space to grow into someone stronger. Someone who didn't just survive, someone who thrived. And maybe, just maybe, someone who could teach them what healing really looks like. The National Medical Conference was being held at the Beverly Hilton, a detail I couldn't ignore. It was exactly the kind of glittering venue Madison used to fantasize about standing in, basking under stage lights and applause. But today it was me, her forgotten sister, who would be center stage, not for a performance, but for saving lives. Backstage, I stood alone with my notes, steadying my breath. My research on progressive treatment protocols for aggressive pediatric leukemia had already sparked conversations across the field. Today, I presented to a room full of the country's most esteemed oncologists, scientists, researchers, and decision-makers who actually understood the value of the work. Dr. Chen, an event coordinator, asked, tablet in hand, "Your family's arrived. They're asking about their seats." Family. The word still felt like a splinter. I kept my voice cool and professional. Front row, left side. Under Chen. She nodded and disappeared, leaving me alone with the quiet hum of the conference hall beyond the curtain, and the unanswered texts still sitting on my phone. Your father says the hospital board knows your name. Madison's taking a break from acting to find herself. We should have been there for you. Can we take you to dinner after the conference? I hadn't responded to a single one. 5 minutes, Dr. Chen. Another coordinator called. I smoothed my blazer and glanced at my reflection. I looked composed, sharp, professional. There wasn't a trace left of the girl they left behind. The lights were blinding as I stepped onto the stage. For a moment, all I could see were silhouettes. But then my eyes adjusted, and I found them. My mother, my father, and Madison seated stiffly in the front row. Dad looked older than I remembered, silver now fully overtaking his hair. Madison, dressed in what she probably thought was a smart suit, looked like she was trying too hard to belong. I didn't acknowledge them. Instead, I launched into my presentation, guiding the audience through charts and clinical data, speaking of hope, not dreams or fantasy, but tangible, earned hope. Hope rooted in research, in sleepless nights, and trial after exhausting trial. The preliminary results show a 60% increase in remission rates using this new protocol, I said, gesturing to a sharp upward curve on the graph. For children like my patient Emma, this could be the difference between a childhood and a memory. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father sit up straighter, studying the numbers with narrowed eyes. The data spoke in a language he respected. When I finished, the applause was immediate and overwhelming. Questions followed, smart ones, earnest ones. I answered with clarity and conviction. I knew this work inside and out. I had bled for it. As the crowd dispersed for the lunch break, I spotted them still standing awkwardly by their seats. But before they could reach me, Dr. Harrison intercepted. "Phenomenal work, Dr. Chen," he said warmly. "The board is very interested in expanding the project's funding." "Thank you. I'd be honored to continue. Dinner tonight? We'll go over the proposal." I nodded, fully aware my family was within earshot. "Have my assistant send you the time and place." He left, and finally, my mother stepped forward. Her voice was soft. "Olivia, that was incredible. We had no idea." "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "You didn't." Dad cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice. "The statistics you presented, those are remarkable." "They are," I said flatly. "Each percentage point is a child who gets to live, a family that doesn't fall apart." Madison shifted beside them, silent. "Can we take you to lunch?" Mom asked. "Please, we'd like to talk." I glanced at my watch. I have 15 minutes. "The hospital cafeteria is right downstairs," Dad offered quickly, businesslike now that he saw what I had become. "Fine." The walk there was strained, a tangle of shallow attempts at small talk and long silences. Madison kept checking her phone. Nervous habit, not urgency. Her world had gotten smaller, and she knew it. Once seated, Mom leaned forward, eyes bright with hope and guilt. "You're doing so well. We're so proud." "Don't," I said quietly. "You don't get to be proud of something you abandoned." "We made terrible mistakes," Dad said, his voice subdued. "But we're trying now, trying to make it right." I studied them for a moment. "Why?" "Because I made something of myself. Because the hospital board says my name now." Their silence was answer enough. "That's not fair," Madison said. "We're here because we're family." I gave a short laugh. "Family? Family doesn't disappear in the middle of the night with a text. Family doesn't lock you out of your own home or throw your belongings into storage like trash. Family shows up for the struggle, not just the success." Mom wiped at her eyes. "When your research started making headlines, when we heard what you were doing, we realized what we lost." "Who you lost," I corrected. "You didn't just abandon a daughter. You abandoned a future you couldn't be bothered to understand." Madison flinched. "I never asked them to choose me over you." "You didn't have to," I said evenly. "You were always the favorite. All you had to do was exist." My pager buzzed, breaking the tension. Emma's results were in. "I have to go." I stood up. Mom reached out, her voice trembling. "Can we start over? Please?" I paused, looking at the three of them. My mother, red-eyed and pleading. My father, finally seeing me clearly. Madison, shrinking inside a dream that never became real. They wanted a second chance now that they couldn't ignore who I'd become, but absolution doesn't come just because it's convenient. "I don't need a fresh start," I said. "I built a life without you, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." And with that, I turned and walked away. 6 months after the conference, I stood in Emma's hospital room, watching her parents fold their daughter into tearful hugs as we gave them the news. Complete remission. My treatment protocol, combined with Emma's fierce resilience, had worked. She would get to grow up, Go to school. Dream bigger than IV bags and blood counts. Thank you, Dr. Chen, her mother whispered, voice breaking as she wrapped her arms around me. You gave us our daughter back. As I stepped into the corridor, blinking against the wave of emotion, I noticed someone sitting quietly in the waiting area. Madison. Dressed down in jeans and a soft sweater, she looked almost unfamiliar. Or maybe she looked more like herself than I'd seen in years. Hey, she said, standing a little too quickly. I hope it's okay I came. Mom mentioned today was the big day. I nodded, surprised but not unwelcoming. Emma's in remission. She's going to be okay. I watched through the window, Madison said, voice quiet. The way she looked at you. It reminded me of how I used to look at you, before everything got so complicated. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the sister I'd expected to see. She took a breath. I've been in therapy, trying to unravel it all. Why I needed to be the center of everything. Why I let Mom and Dad make me believe their approval was the only kind that mattered. Her laugh was small, self-aware. Turns out the spotlight doesn't feel so warm when it's the only thing holding you up. We crossed the street to the coffee shop, our coffee shop, where we'd once exchanged years of distance in a single bristling encounter. This time, the silence between us felt different. Open. I quit acting, she said once we were seated. Well, technically, the furniture store let me go. But I'm not auditioning anymore. I'm going back to school. Community college. Starting small. That's good, I said, cautiously hopeful. What made you decide to do that? You did. She traced the rim of her mug. Watching you at the conference, seeing how people looked at you, not because you were famous, but because you mattered. It made something click. I've spent years chasing admiration, but I never really asked myself why. I don't want attention anymore, Olivia. I want purpose. For the first time in years, I didn't see the rival. I saw my little sister, raw, uncertain, trying, and for once, not performing. You always mattered, Madison, I said softly, just not more than everyone else. She nodded, blinking quickly. I know that now. From her bag, she pulled out a small, carefully wrapped box. This isn't a peace offering exactly, more like an acknowledgement. Inside was our grandmother's pearl necklace, the one I thought had been lost years ago, discarded along with the rest of my old life. I found it in Mom's jewelry box, Madison said. She never told you she kept it. Probably didn't know how. I thought, maybe you should have it again. I ran my fingers over the familiar curve of the pearls, remembering what Grandma used to say. Wisdom is what you earn from pain you didn't choose. She would have smiled to see this moment. Mom and Dad want to make amends, Madison added, but they don't really know where to start. Honestly, I don't think any of us deserved you. I looked at her, really looked. Maybe it's not about deserving. Maybe it's about doing better. Choosing better. My pager buzzed. Another patient needed me. I stood up, slinging my coat over one arm. Madison caught my hand gently. Can we maybe do this again sometime? Just us? I'd like to get to know my sister again, the real one. I smiled, feeling something unspoken begin to mend. We can start with coffee. Later that evening, while finishing up patient charts, I received a text from Mom. Your father and I want to donate to the pediatric oncology department in your name. Not to fix the past, just to help kids like Emma. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. The department could use a new research facility, but it'll be in Emma's name, not mine. Her response came almost immediately. Of course. Whatever you think is best. You always did know better than we did. It wasn't redemption, not yet. Some wounds don't heal cleanly, but it was something. A step. As I placed my grandmother's pearls on a hook beside my framed degrees and research commendations, I felt a quiet truth settle in. Sometimes the family you're born into has to break before it can be rebuilt. Not into what it was, but into something honest, something earned. I picked up my phone and typed, Sunday dinner, my place, just family, because that's what we were becoming. Not perfect, not fixed, but real. And if there's one thing I know how to do, it's help things heal.